Hey guys, today we're talking about climate change and how it affects every single one of us. Behind me over here, this is planet Earth. Today it's home to over 7 billion people who are all equally unique as the ones before them. Through innovations in science and technology, humans have continued to evolve. We've created some pretty cool things, like the first phone, the first camera, the first computer. These inventions were all possible just through the Industrial Revolution. This was a transition to new manufacturing processes between the periods of 1760 and 1820. Although we created some really cool things, that came at a price. The Industrial Revolution was the beginning of industrial pollution. As we began producing more and more things, we also began polluting more and more. Throughout this process, our planet has been destroyed and exploited, and we've continued to abuse it throughout the years just for the sake of innovation and production. However, how far will we go just to sacrifice a precious earth? We only have one, and we only have one shot to make this right. Opening the news today can be really sad. We've seen so many environmentally related disaster events take place. You might also hear about some crazy environmentalists just screaming about some crazy term. This crazy term is climate change. There's a lot of information floating around about climate change, but what really does it mean? Most people relate climate change with the industrial pollution and its relation to changing weather patterns. Others think climate change doesn't even exist. Sadly, climate change is very real and it's only getting worse. So how do we even define climate change? Well, climate change is the change in the long-term weather patterns that is altered through human activity. An example of climate change is global warming, which is the rise of the average global temperature. So you might be thinking, well, how does this all happen? Well, you might know that all life on Earth relies on the warmth of the sun. While some of the solar radiation actually bounces back to space from Earth, a small portion of radiation is trapped by a thin and delicate layer of gases that make up our atmosphere. Without this layer, Earth will just be another frozen rock. I don't think any of us want to live on a frozen rock. Carbon dioxide is the active and most vital gas that influences this thin layer. It can be found everywhere, from our plants to the soil and even our own bodies. But when we release more and more carbon into the atmosphere through burning fossil fuels and deforesting our tree populations, we're releasing more and more carbon every year that the Earth cannot sustain itself. It really shouldn't be a surprise today that Earth's atmosphere contains 42% more carbon dioxide than it did just before the industrial era. So you'd be sitting here telling me, well, what does this even mean? Well, since climate change changes the patterns of the weather, this could mean a change in the average weather conditions. Take for example our first day of spring in Canada. It was snowing. Do you know what's worse than some snow during spring? This, having your house totaled by a quote-unquote natural disaster. But as we continue to pollute our Earth and we're changing the weather patterns, we're facing an increased frequency and higher intensity of extreme weather events on a global scale. Real people are facing real issues and are in constant threat of what disaster might strike next. These people are defined by the United Nations as environmental refugees. These people are just like us, except they face tribulations that we in Canada cannot really comprehend. Whether it's a major environmental disaster or sea levels rising dramatically, thousands if not millions of people are displaced without any resources, and many are left without a home or access to clean water or food. Although these people are left to seek a new beginning elsewhere, they are not offered any international aid due to the reason that they have become displaced in the first place. Many disasters strike and leave areas destroyed and virtually unfit to live in. Other disasters such as floods or wildfires may leave an area inadequate for a short while, but the area regenerates, with the only risk being that a similar event may take place again. Still, you guys, there are other disasters like long-term drought that can allow people to return to an area, but they don't offer the same opportunities for regeneration and can leave people without an opportunity for regrowth in general. In these situations, these areas are uninhabitable and regrowth is not possible. Individuals are forced to permanently relocate. If this can be done with someone's own country, that's great. But most of the time, it's an entire community that gets devastated, and the country simply does not have the resources to be able to relocate that many people. It is so sad that the International Red Cross predicts that there are currently more environmental refugees than refugees displaced because of war. Yet, environmental refugees aren't even included or protected under the International Refugee Law, which only protects refugees of war. We have to feel some kind of responsibility for people just like us around the world. So you may be thinking, well, this really doesn't affect us here in Toronto. But what if I tell you it does? What if I told you that this is the city of Toronto? Would you believe me? Well, it's true. On July 8th in 2013, the city of Toronto experienced a storm that took the city by complete and utter surprise. The storm transitioned from a typical summer thunderstorm to a severe storm that produced record levels of rainfall in a very short period of time. In just 2 hours between the 6 and 8 p.m., Pearson Airport reported a total of 90 millimeters had accumulated, with a total of 126 milliliters of rain that fell in total. This is just to put that in perspective. A usual thunderstorm is about 15 to 20 millimeters, so to have an accumulated amount of rainfall to be 126 millimeters, that's truly out of our average range. Urban flooding, like what we witnessed in Toronto on July 8th, is only one of many storm catastrophes that seem to be growing in commonality amongst developed megacities and even developing cities around the world. Flooded subway systems, derailed trains, and submerged cars were all common scenes amongst the wreckage caused by the thunderstorm. The July 8th storm only highlighted the major defects within Toronto's storm water infrastructure. David Phillips, a senior climatologist with Environment Canada, noted that much like other megacities, Toronto is more susceptible to flooding events as the surface is covered by impermeable asphalt. What that means is that unlike regions covered with porous soils, asphalt is not built to absorb water or liquids. Rather, it's built to repel them. Consequently, the water is not able to move, and so it accumulates, causing yet another urban flood. The most important thing for policymakers to understand is that, like people, every flood is unique. Precautions need to be taken not only for present-day flooding situations, but efforts need to be made to prevent future ones from occurring. This goes hand in hand with the next node of identifying measures in order to pinpoint what will be the most effective way to reduce the potential risk to both life and infrastructure. Crisis risk management policies are multi-sectoral and multidisciplinary. Thus, they require the sheer cohesion of several diverse non-government and government bodies to come together for the better good of the public. Just because we live in Toronto doesn't mean we're immune to all things crisis related. Unlike many around the world, we have resources here to be prepared. The Toronto and Region Conservation Authority is a leader in environmental education and has been providing innovative learning programs since 1954. The TRCA offers great day trip workshops that educate students and teachers alike on what to do exactly when a crisis does strike. Students can then take what they learned and apply it at a community level. When disasters strike, they don't only affect one family or one home, they affect communities and regions that have to collectively work together to get back on track again. It is essential that policymakers keep in mind that there is no set-in-stone methodology that can be applied to any force of nature. Policymakers need to be aware that these climate issues are affecting us all. By educating ourselves and then spreading the knowledge to the community, we can impact future policies being made that can help our Earth rather than destroy it. Remember, as we continue to release more and more environmental pollution into the atmosphere, we not only destroy our environment, but essentially we throw off the climate patterns globally. This causes an increase of international catastrophes that affect millions of people around the world. These environmental catastrophes can attack us at any moment too. We need to get educated, get our community educated, and get policies that favor our environment. Earth is the densest and fifth largest of 8 planets that are within the solar system. It is beautiful and it is ours to take care of. We have the power to write its future. Let us begin writing a healthier and brighter tomorrow, today.